It Takes Radio Company presents another one of our premier programs, the Stanley Jones Radio School for Fully Alive Living right now. And today, going forward, we are going to need more Jones boys in the world. That's right, more Jones boys. Let me tell you the story. Well, greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stan, the radio man, and this is the Stanley Jones radio show, podcast, program, school. That's what we are. We are a radio school for fully alive living, starting now and forever. And we are trying to put this together once a week. We will have other special programs as we can, but we would be grateful for your support, your encouragement, and anything else you can do to help make this bold venture successful and fruitful and profitable for the kingdom of God. Remember that, the kingdom of God. And if we're students of Stanley Jones, we know that that was a big deal. And the kingdom of God is here for us to experience and join and be a part of right now. It's not just some heavenly after place. It's a space and time and challenge for all of us right now. And I know as he would hear me say this in heaven, he's smiling and saying, "That's right, Mr. Stan. That's right." Now, what I would like to do today is, again, continue some of the encouragement that we've had in making sure that you are able to find some resources to better understand just how important it is that we preserve the lore, the legend, and the legacy of Stanley Jones and his contribution. As it was pointed out, in effect, before there was Billy Graham, Time magazine said that Stanley Jones was the world-class famous missionary in the world. And if we have explored him in any way, we find out, as I continue to find out, 50 years after his passing, that as I read through his books, I shake my head and say, "Oh my goodness, that's good. That's really current. That's right now. That's for tomorrow." And we're going to encourage you perhaps to find a way to be involved in that adventure too. I suggested that, and we talked about the book that from the East Stanley Jones Foundation with Ann Matthews Eunice. Wonderful book, The Life and Ministry of Mary Webster. And Ann has promised me that she's going to come back and help tell the rest of the story about that book. And so we would encourage you, as you're looking for your vacation, retreat, or summer plans, maybe you want to pick this up. It is truly wonderful. Okay. Then my friend Ed Hurd. Some of you know of Ed Hurd. He's quite a character. I love talking to him. And he promised me that if I bought a copy, and he actually gave me a few bucks to do it. Isn't that nice of him? He's a nice coach. The Unshakable Kingdom and the Unchanging Person. And I said, what I'd like you to do, because this book was not written in the usual Stanley Jones style of like a daily devotional, I said, I would like you to give me a coaching session. No, I'm a business performance coach. I'm a radio coach, but I'm not much of a theological coach. And so I asked Ed if maybe he would give me a coaching session on the Unshakable Kingdom and probably point out some of the things that I should make sure that I look up and mention. That's what a good coach does. They help get you going in the right direction and helps you save time and be efficient and help you better understand where we're at. Then many of you are familiar with Reverend Leonard Sweet, obviously a man very much involved in the foundation of East Stanley Jones and very much of a man who actually was involved in putting together the book that we mentioned on the new 100-year anniversary of the book, Christ of the Indian Road. I also picked this book up. It's called The Church in the Emerging Culture. I actually saw it at a used bookstore. Um, I love to do that and pick up used books. Sometimes I like to pick up a used book that somebody else has already marked up and highlighted, because then I can actually get to learn something from the person who got the book before I did. I do that all the time. By Leonard Sweet. And it's just that. It's a taking some of the modern thinkers who are dealing with what E. Stanley Jones dealt with 50, 60 years ago, which is the emergence of the postmodern world. And Stanley Jones encountered that in India about 100 years ago, long before the Western church had any sense of it, because India was already postmodern in that whatever works for you, that works. And he knew. One of the wonderful statements which really struck me is he said that I could not go into India and just say, I have the truth, because they thought anything, everything could be true. And so what he had to do is he said, I had to demonstrate, not just describe, not just preach, not tell. I had to demonstrate that my faith worked. Think about that. And I think you might find this very helpful. And maybe Leonard will come and talk about it sometime, because we want to be very much aware of what's going on, particularly in our culture. And we will have a way for us together at the school to understand the four elements of the modern world: the story of Jesus, the marketplace, the media, and the mess that is in culture. And that's what we today deal with, those four elements. Hey, okay, now, yeah, the title was kind of strange. The Jones Boys. Let me tell you a little bit of why I struck a chord there. For many, many years, I was a business performance coach. And at the same time before that, I was a radio missionary broadcaster. And that's where I'd heard about Stanley Jones, as I said that my father had written a dissertation about him. And that's probably about the same time I was born. And so I'd heard about it. But when I did missionary radio work, I found, where can I find good practical things to talk about? Because you got every day you got to be on the radio. Well, that's when I discovered some of the earliest works of Stanley Jones. I said, this was very helpful. Think about it. You're looking for a good program that has a little bit of an affirmation and a prayer and something that's unique and practical and useful. If you look at the titles of his books, they really don't have any theological titles to them. Abundant living, the way. It is practical ways to experience God's blessings, power, and transformation now. And so I found that very helpful. But then when I came back and got involved in business performance coaching, and that wasn't as a Christian, I was a Christian, but I was working in the secular rock 'em, sock 'em, knock 'em down marketplace. And a lot of younger men and women and not so young men and women were trusting me to help them with some advice about how they could live and do work in business. Guess who I found helpful? Stanley Jones, particularly dealing with fear. My first book was entitled Chapter 1, Fear Kills Everything. And it was one of the most popular chapters in the book. Guess who was one of my prime resources for writing that chapter? Yeah, the man, Stanley Jones. How to overcome fear. How to fear less in a fearful world. So again, he came into my life. And now I'm back as part of the story. But just recently, there was an interesting study that came out. And here's what we have discovered to our chagrin. We now know that the number of people in North America, at least, who call themselves Christians is going down. Yes, considerably. The amount of people who call themselves nuns, not N-U-N-S, nuns, N-O-N-E-S, nuns, they don't have any particular religion. No, you know, that is taking place. And in many places, the church is going down. Membership is going down. Now, we're hoping that maybe there's a little bit of a revival. It seems like maybe there might be a little bit of a revival taking place in some sectors of the world. Again, interestingly enough, probably the church in China is continuing to go and grow even in the midst of persecution, and that is oftentimes the case. Obviously, many of our good brothers and sisters in India are dealing with some difficulties in terms of how the culture and society is working and how it allows freedom of life and business and commerce to those who are believers. That's a problem, and we have to pray for them and help them. And that's why we want you to help support a Stanley Jones podcast that will be geared especially for India, produced by some of our Indian brothers and sisters. They don't need another old white guy talking to them. They need young men and women who are of the Indian culture, class, and commerce and entrepreneurship. That's who we are going to try and find. But an interesting comment. It has been noted that the number of younger men going to church is up. At the same time, younger women, it's going down, interestingly. And we also found out that very much many of these are people who now say, I don't trust the church, I don't trust the politicians, but I do trust the entrepreneurs. You know, those men and women who don't depend on anybody but their own selves, and they have to go and make life happen. And so there's a increasing interest among young men. And I think that is our opportunity. Now, remember, a man wants to achieve things. A man wants to move things. A man wants to make things. That's kind of how God made us. He didn't make us to have an easy life. And he made us to strive, and sometimes to struggle and work hard, and sometimes even have to be warriors. And as somebody was commenting about this, particularly as they were talking about will the new pope be able to help this continuing growth in young men? And the commentator said this. He said, please keep in mind that what is happening is that our young men and women are living a life that is a story with no plot. Story with no plot. Yeah. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. There's nothing in it that helps make sense. We oftentimes talk about how life has what we call a plot twist. That's when, you know, all of a sudden, boom, something happens. And obviously a good story, sometimes the plot twists all the time. And so they get involved in all kinds of crazy stuff, looking for a purpose, looking for a plot, looking for something that gives them a sense of meaning and importance. I think we should help them very much. These younger men and women, but particularly the men seems to be where we could have greater impact. And so I think, as I said, we need more Jones boys. Yeah. It is time for us to understand that Stanley Jones was a man. He was brave, he was bold, he was hard, he was tough. He was all of those things. He was entrepreneurial. He was certainly living and driven by the forces of the Spirit. When I look at his life, I say, man, how did he achieve all that? How did he do all that? 6 and 7 and 8 sermons a day. I mean, when I put on a 2-hour radio program, it wore me out. I think it's time that perhaps we make an effort to take the wisdom and the wit and the power and the poise. I love that book. You know, power, poise, the transformed life, power. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. And make that in a way that is attractive to the young modern men, particularly, but men and women in today's marketplace who are not only trying to find meaning and purpose in their life, but they've got to make a living. How can they be what I call Jesus following entrepreneurs, Jesus following businessmen and women? We don't, okay, please. I'm not sure we need more preachers and pastors. As Stanley Jones said, the church will grow through its laity, its empowered laity. And that's what we talked about last week, that Jones understood. That's why he gave up his professional religious positions, because he said, it is when I have men and women who follow Jesus, who have surrendered to him as Lord, who belong to him, not just believe in him, but belong to him. And we put them in the marketplace. We put them where everybody has to go. Not everybody has to go to church. And if they do, they only go for 1 hour a week, but they're in the marketplace 40 to 50 hours a week. Boom. That's where we need more Jones boys and women, gals. Yeah. I would just leave this with you. That's part of what we are going to try to do. And I would hope that some of you old guys and maybe older people would understand that that would be a worthy mission, to be supportive and powerfully supportive of mentoring and helping and encouraging young men and women who've found Jesus, to find their way into the mysteries and the mess and the incredible demands of living and working in the modern marketplace today. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we have more Jesus following entrepreneurs, Jesus following business leaders, Jesus following not politicians, Jesus following statesmen and women who are committed not to their political power and their own ego. They're committed to serving others. That would make Jesus smile, because that was the mission he gave us. That's what the kingdom was going to be all about. And the kingdom has come. And now we simply have to spread the good word. And we have to do it well and powerfully and purposefully, not sloppy, not stupidly, not lazily. We have to be brave and bold and strong and smart, and maybe sometimes a little bit tough, because if we do that, the enemy of our soul and spirit will come after us. He doesn't have to bother many people. They'll just do what they do. But once you are truly a belonger and a man or a woman who wants to make sure that the wisdom of God and the story of Jesus is told, you will attract the attention of some dark spots and places and personalities. But guess what? Jesus is Lord. He has defeated them, and he will defeat them again. I'm done. Please reach out to me. I would appreciate your help, your participation, your support, and your way of helping us understand that the man, Jesus, one of the persons who told his story best, was the man Jones. And we want to have an encore of men and women who continue to be living avatars and living teachers of Stanley Jones. I hope you'll help me. If you're younger, I hope you will join me and be one. Take care. Till next time on the Stanley Jones Radio Show, Radio School